All right, so now I'm going to call the Boilermakers Union and just ask them more questions about the trade as a whole and just get as much information as I can so you guys can learn as much as you can about the Boilermakers trade. So let's hop into it. I'm going to call the Union Hall.
You have reached the International Brotherhood of Boilermakers. Our hours of operation are from 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Thank you for calling and have a good day.
I'll just call the dispatcher.
Boilermakers, this is Hillary.
Hey Hillary, how are you doing today?
Good, thanks.
I just had a couple questions about you guys' union and then like the apprenticeship more specifically.
Sure.
Um,
What kind of questions do you have?
Yeah, so I ran into this guy at the gym. I ran into a Boilermaker, and he sounded very excited about his trade. He's very passionate about it. He said you get to lift heavy stuff, you're working with metal, you're welding. I grew up welding. I don't have any like welding certifications, but he just told me, he's like, if you have any more questions, just call the union hall and ask them. So I said, okay. So I figured I'd just call and kind of ask about, like how the apprenticeship is operated, like what the application process looks like. Is there any sort of certifications that I can get or I should get that I need for getting into the Boilermakers Union and apprenticeship? Kind of pay, benefits of the union and things like that.
Okay. So, are you local in Arizona?
Yeah. Right now I'm local in Arizona. So he said look up Boilermakers Union 627. So
Yeah, okay. I was just curious because we usually recommend anyone who's interested for the apprenticeship program to come down to fill out the application. As far as certification, we do use a pool system. So anyone who has any welding certification or anything like that would go further up the pool system. But even if you don't have experience, do not let that deter you. There's lots of opportunity for training and getting all of those certifications. The two things that we require, which we provide for you to be put to work and to be on the primary work list, would be a drug test. You would have to be able to pass a drug test, and then you would need to complete the OSHA 30. If, let's say, you had like a summer job or something and you had to complete OSHA through a construction company, we would need our own program completion. You would have to go through us for our OSHA for it to qualify. As far as all the other trainings, the apprentices go through about 4 years of apprenticeship before you become an apprentice. You are a helper. We usually indenture the helpers to become apprentices about twice a year. We just had one earlier this month, but we're going to indenture again in January. The 4 years of the apprenticeship, each year you get 3 weeks of training. It's actually here at our facility in our shop, and there's all kinds of on-the-job certification, different things. You'll get training booklets and things that you'll get to read, and like on-the-job training type of environment, like while you're working. Since you are familiar with welding, that is always a good thing. We might be able to set you up with like a welding test and see if you could be placed higher up in the pool system.
with that being said, so with the application process, or come down and apply, so you get put in a pool. Is there an aptitude test that gets you a better pool, or is that like an aptitude test where you guys will do like a hands-on like welding sort of kind of hands-on test and see if that places you or what?
Yeah, it's because you don't have, like, you didn't go to welding school, but you have welding experience. Even if on the application before, like if you came in today and you filled that out, and right now you did do any of the welding tests or whatever, and you were at the lowest level of the pool system, you would still have opportunities. You would still get pulled. We need so many helpers and apprentices right now that we're pulling pretty much everyone. Yes, if you took that, if they were able to give you a welding test, I'm pretty sure apprentices can, because you are familiar. It would move you further up.
I come down and apply. Can I like apply and then you become a helper, then you just don't get indentured as an apprentice until you come to your pool ranking? Or how do I become okay, sorry.
Technically, if we need so many, like if we need all of the people in the pools, no matter which pool they're in, we will pull everyone if we need them. It doesn't, just because you're in the lowest pool doesn't mean you won't get indentured. Does that make sense? Like if we have a need, we're going to pull everyone.
I see. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I was just a bit confused on like, okay, if I was obviously don't have like the best ranking because I'm only 19 years old with no like quote unquote official real welding experience or certification because I never went to a welding school. And that's what I was trying to determine.
Yeah,
Someone was
no.
saying, oh yeah, you need to go to a welding school and get certified and go to 2-year welding school and things like that. And I said, I don't know if I have to. Isn't that what the apprenticeship is for? To teach you that kind of stuff?
You don't. You do not have to go to welding school. Some people will go to welding school, decide that yes, this is something they want to do, and they want to join a union for the benefit, and so they kind of take that path. But it's not a requirement whatsoever for you to have to have gone to welding school. I think our president of the union right now was a pool 4, which is the lowest pool. He didn't have welding school, so there's so much on the job training. There's so much training and support through the apprenticeship program. Yeah, you'll have tons of experience just off of the apprenticeship. You don't need to have gone to welding school. If you did, great. But if you haven't, that's okay too.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because that was one of the things I was like, well, yeah, apprenticeship isn't that for like learning on the job? That's kind of the whole cool thing about getting into a trade is getting into an apprenticeship and learning on the job. Essentially getting paid to learn. So yeah, I was kind of confused when people were telling me that, and I was like, well, I don't know that I don't really have the money and time to want to go to a welding school. I'd rather just start learning on the job. And so quickly, you mentioned also about what does like a helper, I'm just kind of curious, like what a helper and like how the apprenticeship, how you get paid and what the benefits look like with the union.
So a helper gets 55% of the journeyman. So right now for 2023, that's like $20 and something cents an hour.
Okay.
For an apprentice, the further you are in the apprenticeship program, the higher your pay rate goes. So a helper starts at 55% of journeyman. I believe, let me pull it up. I don't want to tell you an incorrect number. I believe it starts at like 70% of a journeyman. Okay, yes. So apprentices for 2023, their wage, which is 70% of the journeyman wage, for every 1,000 hours that you get credited, you will receive a 5% increase. So if you reach 1,000 hours, you'll go from 70 to 75, 75 to 80, so on until you get that 95%. So 70% of a journeyman is $25.54 an hour, and then 95% right now is $34.67 an hour. And both a helper and an apprentice receive fringe benefit package. A helper doesn't receive fringe benefits until you've completed 1,500 hours on the job, but you will start to pay into your pension, your annuity, your health and welfare after 2,000 hours on the job. Even as an apprentice, you get all of those things contributed as well at a higher rate. So
what did you say first off? As a helper, you don't get what again?
So as a helper, you have to have completed 1,500 hours on the job for you. So after 1,500 hours of working on the job, then your fringe benefit package will kick in. So that's like paying into your pension, paying into your health and welfare. Health and welfare is after 2,000 hours. But you will start to get all of those benefits that the journeymen receive. You start building towards that.
So inside the benefit package, obviously you have dental, health, eye,
right, yeah,
all that stuff. And then so I'm assuming with the union, so per hour you work, you contribute X amount percent towards your benefits and stuff, correct?
Right. And even your vacation time and things like that. So honestly, it's kind of amazing because you're going to school as an apprentice and you're getting benefits and paid.
Yeah, that's exactly why when people are saying, oh yeah, you have to go to this traditional or technical college for 4 years and get this certification, I'm like, well, what's the whole point of getting into a trade then and going through an apprenticeship? I'm going to do 8 years of training? Like, what?
Right.
I didn't really get that
Because
concept.
even if you did the 2 years of welding school or however long that is, even if you had that experience, that's only going to help you with the pool system if we only needed so many people.
Yeah.
But let's say you were up against somebody else who had that welding experience, but you're both in the apprenticeship program already, it's not going to make that much of a difference.
Okay. that's
You know, like
yeah. Yeah, I
you
see what
both
you're
have to
saying.
complete the 4 years. You both have to go through the same trainings and
Yeah.
all of that stuff.
Because inside the apprenticeship, you were saying also that like there's in-class learning or training, like there's book work and stuff
Right.
you have to do. I mean,
Right.
it's
Right.
not just all on the job stuff. You know, it's like actually,
Right.
I don't know if that's week in school or whatever here and there, but okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that clarified a lot for me because like yeah, I was looking for. You know, like I thought finding a career in the welding industry would be cool. And someone threw at me, well, you should check out Millwright. And then I ran into this guy who's a Boilermaker. And he's like, no, dude, you should become a Boilermaker. He's like, dude, we got to
Right.
lift heavy stuff. He also said there's a lot of rigging involved too, which that sounds really cool. So is it using like cranes and stuff?
Yeah, there's all kinds of different pieces to it. The kind of cool thing about Boilermakers, and I'm new, so I'm kind of learning the overall concept, but like there's the pipe fitters, and we can do what the pipe fitters do, but the pipe fitters can't do what we do.
Ah, okay.
Sense?
Yeah,
So
that
it's
makes
like
sense.
there's like a step higher. We can fill all of the pipe fitter requirements if like a contractor needed that, but a pipe fitter can't do Boilermaker work.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. I was also going to ask you more like, so what is the journeyman rate for 627 right now? And I'm going to assume that because there's local union halls all over the country, it's going to vary for pay anywhere you
Right.
go.
It varies per state. Right now, for a journeyman, for just a Boilermaker, it's $36.49 an hour.
Okay. And then on your guys' contract, does your guys' overtime is at all time and a half except for Sundays and holidays or what?
You know, I think that really depends on the contractor.
Okay.
Because they will set up like how many hours, like you might be working 6 10s or something, like, so it really just depends on how they set up the need for their outage. But there is time and a half, there is double time, there are still those
Per
zones.
diem
I'm
and
just
things
not
like that
sure.
too.
Yeah.
I'm assuming
Yeah,
that per diem is probably
everything,
based on the contractor, I'm assuming.
right, and depending on all of the bits and pieces. But yes, those things are possibilities. Usually it is up to the contractor themselves, but yeah, I mean, I see guys who have double time and all kinds of stuff every single month. So
Yeah, so they probably have nice paychecks. You get every week, or I'm assuming you either get paid every week or 2 weeks, but
yeah, I'm not sure how that part goes.
yeah, it's probably on contractor as well. That's really good. Thank you for clarifying all this for me. And then obviously with the union, there's every union. I know my dad, like you pay dues. Like how much is the dues
Correct.
with you guys?
So as an apprentice, you don't pay dues until after you're indentured. So once you get indentured, you have 6 months to pay the initiation fee, which is $300, and then after that point, you'll start paying dues. Right now, for 2023, they're $58.20 a month for working dues, $43.90 for out of work dues. So if you work more than 4 days a month, it's considered working dues, and if you haven't worked or you've worked 4 less days, then it's out of work dues.
Okay, interesting. All right, then you become a journeyman steam fitter or a journeyman boilermaker. Am I able to? I would assume my ticket would say I'm a 627 journeyman boilermaker. Am I able to go travel to different local unions or different union halls and work? You know, let's say Washington or Wisconsin or wherever.
Oh yeah, definitely. You can definitely travel. As an apprentice, sometimes we let helpers and apprentices travel, but if we have a bunch going on locally, we don't, like right now we're not letting our helpers or apprentices travel because we are heading into our outage season, which is when all of our work is available.
I see.
But as a journeyman, yes, you have all kinds of options. You can, even in the system we use, you just open up that dashboard and you pick which locals you would be willing to travel to.
Oh, really? Okay, interesting. So once you're a journeyman, there's a lot more, I guess, quote
Yeah,
unquote, freedom of where you want to go or what kind of work you want to do.
exactly. And then once a local is, like, once you're somebody who is going to travel, like, we have people that, if we have huge projects and we are out of members, we will call out for people who are the travelers to fill
Okay.
those spots. So, and it's the same everywhere. We have
Okay.
members who are working for other locals right now.
So do you have to have like a traveler's ticket then, or just like a letter from your local hall saying like like a traveling letter or something like that?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
We just grant permission. Like, we just, honestly, it's a button we click in our system,
Okay.
and it
I
says,
see.
yes, you're allowed to travel.
Okay. And just briefly, because you mentioned about helpers and apprentices traveling, is that on? Because I kind of think like if apprentice was indentured with 627, do you guys send them to different areas, or are they able to choose?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure of if, I'm guessing it would be if they choose, they would be able, like, if it would be more their choice to travel. Like, we don't, like, hey, you need to go to Washington to, like, we're not going to do that. We might let them know that there's an opportunity, but
Okay.
but our system, like our program that we have, you can go on to the website and it'll list, like, open jobs or whatever. But like I said, I think it just depends. It's a little different for helpers and apprentices than it is for journeymen for traveling. So
Yeah,
I think there are some more rules and just things like that, but
I would think, I guess, as like an apprentice or helper, since you're kind of more on the bottom of the totem pole, that you wouldn't have the necessarily option to just travel and leave, go to a different
right,
job if you want to. Because I know a buddy of mine who is an apprentice. He's an apprentice lineman in the Northwest, and he can be working somewhere in Oregon. Then they'll email him, call him up on Friday, be like, "Hey, I need you to be here in Seattle, Washington on Monday." And he's like,
right.
"Okay." So he has to pack his crap, and obviously the employer, the contractor knows, and then he just packs his crap and he goes to Seattle, and they don't get to pick and choose them where they get to work and stuff. So yeah, that's interesting to know. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think for the most
there's
part, yeah. Go ahead.
I just can't think of a time in the few months I've been here where they're like, no, you have to go here. Like, it's always
Okay,
hey, are you ready to go to work here?
I see. All right, cool. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time, and you've explained a lot to me and clarified a ton about what I wanted to know more about the Boilermakers trade. Now I know that you're saying as far as applying, I have to come down to the union hall. That's not like something I do online, right?
It's best if you come down into the office. We fill out the paperwork with you, and then we get you set up for your drug test and your OSHA 30. If you bring a copy, the only documents that are required for your application is a copy of your birth certificate and a copy of your high school diploma or GED. And if
Okay.
you bring those with you, then once we fill out the application, I can mail it off for you.
Okay.
So it just kind of wraps everything up. It's just easier if you're here because we get all of the pieces put together for you, and then when you leave, you're ready to go.
Yeah, sounds like it. Shoot, man, now I'm a lot more interested in what you guys have to offer or what the Boilermakers trade, I guess, has to offer for me, because I was just kind of lost in the dark a little bit for a while, but now that thankfully you've explained a lot to me, so I really appreciate you taking the time to answer my questions and just clarify a lot more for me.
Of course.
Well, I appreciate you once again, and then
Okay, great. We are open Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. With lunch from 12 to 1.
okay.
And you're welcome to come down any day. Just come in and let us know you want to fill out an application.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right,
Have a good day.
you have the rest of your day too.
Bye.
Bye. Well, she was very helpful, and she explained a lot on what it takes to become a Boilermaker, and she gave a whole bunch of information. If you still stuck around through that whole phone call, hopefully you did, because she gave me a bunch of information. She answered all my questions basically perfectly. So yeah, the Boilermakers trade sounds pretty cool. I mean, your pay per hour here where I'm at in Arizona isn't exactly the highest pay of anywhere in the country, right? If you go anywhere to the West Coast, I bet Washington, Oregon, or California, or if you go to the East Coast or somewhere in the Midwest, Illinois or Wisconsin, those states are probably going to have higher hourly wage. But so much the cool thing about the union is the benefits with, you know, your pension, your health, your eye, your dental, things like that are the really cool things. So the whole package is worth more than what she said per hour for a journeyman Boilermaker. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. Like she said, we're in need for helpers and apprentices. So depending on where you're at, and if you want to become a Boilermaker, and if you're into welding, lifting heavy stuff, rigging, putting things together, building big massive structures like ships and buildings and big oil tank, just like anything big in metal, Boilermakers is a great trade to look into, especially if you want to get to a lucrative industry, a career like the welding industry. Boilermakers is a great trade to look at. Hopefully you can learn from that phone call. And with that being said, Blueprint here to expose, teach, and educate you about blue collar career opportunities and things that'll help you in the skilled trades, like getting started in the Boilermakers Union. If you want to get into a welding industry, check out the Boilermakers career. And with that being said, I'll see you on the next one.